Yo, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
What's
Post game. First post
let's
game. Let's
go.
go. First post game of the regular season restart. I'm here with my boy Chaez, man. We are so excited that you guys were able to catch this post game. I know it's a few minutes late, but what a game, Chaez. We were texting back and forth, bro. My brain was at an all-time anxiety high, man. I ain't never experienced
Bro.
nothing like that.
Bro, it was something else. It was something that we were been waiting on for what, 5 months, 4 months now? I mean,
real talk.
Man, I'm Anthony Davis with 34, 8, and 4 tonight. A little bit closer than I thought it maybe should have been. But Anthony Davis came through. LeBron really came through in the fourth quarter. Defensively, more than anything, Kuzma stepped up, had 16 points, did his thing. Obviously,
Yep.
Caruso didn't shoot the ball very well, but somehow he was a +9. And star of the game for us Laker fans, Dion Waiters. Dion Waiters is going to be that guy in the lineup now. He's definitely going to get in the 8-man, 9-man rotation, I feel like. And Lakers picked up right where they left off and come up with a huge win to start the bubble. And we off and rolling for number 17. Let's go.
Let's go, man. Yeah, and we were texting back and forth. I was actually really surprised. Chaz, just so you guys know, background man, he's really been screaming the praise of Waiters way before tonight. And so tonight, I mean, I have to bow down to you, bro. I have to say you were absolutely right. I know a lot of us were on the fence about him, obviously with the issues off the court, but tonight he showed why this dude is so valuable to this team. And to be honest, we're obviously missing Avery Bradley. But watching what he did tonight, he contributed 11 points, but it wasn't so much the 11 points that he contributed. It was the way he did it and the pressure he was taking off of the offense trying to figure out what to do when normally you'd have a Rondo in that spot, or you would have Avery Bradley, who's, these guys are normally pass first or defensive minded. But Waiters came in to get his buckets. And that was one of the things we've been missing all season. You were talking about, even before the NBA shut down, you were talking about the issues of not having a playmaker outside of LeBron. And tonight showed, man, that Waiters is going to be valuable going forward.
Waiters is huge. He's by far the best pickup that Pelinka has had this season, outside of obviously the offseason with putting the team together. But between JR, between Antetokounmpo, K-Cock,
yeah,
along with Dion Waiters, I mean, he's done a really good job in putting this team together and insulating the team and having the kind of chemistry that they have. And it really just starts at the top with the leadership of LeBron James, followed by Anthony Davis, and it just trickles all the way down. So when Dion Waiters and J.R. Smith get in there, it's just business as usual. They don't have all this pressure to do things that they aren't accustomed to doing. Vogel has set them up for success by giving them the minutes and putting them in positions to be able to show their skills more than anything and really just do what they do. I love that JR got his 8 minutes. He was a -7 in that time period, but Caruso was able to come in and anchor the defense, even though he didn't shoot well and was 2 for 7 overall, missed a few free throws, but had very key stops down the stretch. That, and along with Anthony Davis and Dion Waiters creating off the dribble, making the nice extra pass. I mean, what can you say? I mean, that's exactly why you got him for the low, got him for the cheap, and you're getting maximum production out of him in a huge game down the stretch against your pretty much number one rival for the season, because everyone knows it's going to come down to the Lakers and the Clippers, unless the Clippers get taken out by a team along the way. So,
and really, to be honest, tonight the Clippers showed, that they do have a really tough pedigree, obviously led by Doc Rivers. And so we all believe as Laker fans that the Lakers are going to win the championship. We fully believe that. But we do know that if there's going to be a stumbling block coming out of the West, it is going to be the Clippers. And tonight was great to see. Obviously, they were without Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams, but tonight the Lakers didn't let that stop them from bringing out the intensity. And you brought up plus minus, and it's so interesting to watch because we rarely see this. But Anthony Davis and LeBron James both came in with negatives. They came in the minus category. Anthony Davis coming in -3 and LeBron James -4. Most of our plus minus positives came from the bench, with the exception of KCP, who was a +6. Look at these. Listen to these plus minuses, and I'm going to leave the biggest name for last. But you had Waiters, who came in, who was +17. We brought that up. Alex Caruso a +9. Dwight Howard a +5. But here was, if you're going to say Dion Waiters was probably the biggest surprise of tonight, I'm going to add this one. Kyle Kuzma with a +12 tonight, 16
Kyle
points,
Kuzma
four
was
seven.
great.
Yes, yes. And talk about more about that, because we've been talking about Kuzma all year. And tonight was really a statement. It's not, obviously it's not the playoffs, but we've been looking for Kuzma to show himself in moments like this. Has he done enough? Was tonight enough for you to become a Kuzma believer?
I've been a Kuzma believer ever since he stepped on the floor and before he was even drafted, really. But that's just me personally. I've never jumped off the bandwagon. I know Lakers Twitter, we harp on our guy, and we bullied pretty much everybody into doing, what we want them to do, whether it be KCP to start the season or Vogel to get Rondo out the lineup or AD to go to the 5, whatever it is, we bullied, our way and made our voices heard. So I know the voices have been loud on Kuzma, along with his off the court antics and stuff like that. Not that he has any antics, but people just, be in his business. I like the young fella. I like, his style and what he's about and how he moves. But, some people really don't like that. But, on the court, he stepped it up. And he's been doing this even before the shutdown. We saw his defense. We saw his rebounding. We saw his playmaking. And all of that was as a result of him getting into an actual constant motion of having basketball consistently and getting minutes consistently, because obviously he had the foot stress reaction at Team USA and missed the first month and a half to 2 months of the season and really didn't get that ramp up time. So you didn't see the best of Kuz as you did maybe before the All-Star break. But after the All-Star break and up until the shutdown, March 12th, I believe, Kuzma has been playing great, especially in that last Clipper game. So both times, the last time you've seen Kuz play against Kawhi Leonard and defensively overall with rebounding, he's also done a great job. And I love this defense tonight. He was active. His hands were out. He wasn't out of position. He was a little bit, more jumpy than I would have liked him to be, but he had 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and hit his shots, 4 of 8 from 3, 4 or 5 from the free throw line. Did his thing. So that's exactly, if we could get that from Kuzma pretty much every game or around that 12 to 16 points, he doesn't have to score 20. Anything above 15 is gravy at that point, because AD, as you can see, he's in full playoff mode early. He's going to give you 30 to 35. And obviously LeBron just didn't have his rhythm. He was looking for AD early and as a result missed a few shots. But as you can see, it doesn't matter. We're just as deep as the Clippers. But one thing I just want to say, they didn't have Montrez or Lou Williams. So not having those players definitely hurt them, because the run that the Lakers went on and at the end of the first quarter and in the second quarter to have that, 10-point, 12-point lead early on was as a result of Anthony Davis really picking it up and Montrez and Lou not being there and having that scoring option and that deadly pick and roll that they run as well. So it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully the basketball gods give us the Western Conference Finals with these two teams, because it's going to be the most watched series in a long time. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you spoke about Kuzma's minutes, and I think it's important to bring this up, because we're going to get to the comments in a minute, man. But LeBron obviously had, a plus 30 minutes. He was 34. Anthony Davis was 35, but Kyle Kuzma came in as the third highest minutes at 32 minutes. And you can show that when he gets regular minutes and he's getting a bulk of those minutes, it shows in his production. But there's been some commentary about what we've already talked about so far. And I'm going to bring some of this up. I'm going to bring in our people and I'm going to introduce you to them. You already know some of these guys, but Aniket Mohan says, finally, we are back. What a hellacious game that was. Lakers are back. Yeah, it was. We knew it was going to be a tough game. I don't think anybody walked into tonight thinking that tonight was going to be a
Oh
breeze,
no.
even with
Oh
Lou
no.
Williams and Montrez being out. I was
Oh no.
surprised about Beverly. We were hearing conflicting reports. He was going to play, and then we didn't see him, and then we heard he wasn't going to play, and then he popped up. Beverly was a bit of a problem tonight. He was on the three-point line doing his thing. Jermichael Green was doing his thing on the three-point line. In fact, tonight, even though it felt like the Clippers were hitting a lot of threes, it wasn't as lopsided as you would think in regards to the attempts versus the makes. They shot well. Clippers shot well, 44%. We only shot 30%, but we both took 36 3-pointers, and so that's telling that people are going
Mm-hmm.
towards this playoffs is going to be really about who can hit those threes, and we missed our opportunities tonight, but it still didn't matter because we came out with the win. D Millen says
Absolutely.
D Million, LeBron for MVP. Do you think, if you had to cast a vote, all bias aside, do you think LeBron has proven his case for MVP this season?
So as TNT left the show or left the broadcast and went into Inside the NBA as we're gearing up for our show, they showed the last sequence of the game. And the last sequence of the game included LeBron James D'ing up Kawhi, getting Paul George on the dribble handoff switch, and giving Paul George a little bit of a chicken wing, I'll be honest, but got away with it because he didn't extend it all the way out, and Paul George missed a shot, and LeBron D'd up both of them on the last possession, and that's the MVP-like play that you would like to see from the player of his caliber. So, yes, he is not leaps and bounds far away the runaway MVP with Giannis, but overall in year 17 doing what he's doing, anchoring the defense, calling out other people's plays, being the ball handler, setting up and making everybody else better. I mean, what can you say about the guy? He is the MVP, and whether he gets the trophy or not, everybody really knows. Whether it be PER or the fact that Giannis, has been dominant defensively. He's the most dominant player, and he's going to win a few more MVPs and possibly a few rings before his career is over. But right here, right now, LeBron deserves this ring for many reasons that are just not just on the court, but off the court as well, because he's been that ambassador for the league and, pretty much the face for the Lakers, even in terrible times like, earlier this year. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that people have been bringing up, especially the pundits on TV, Giannis, obviously doesn't have an Anthony Davis. We know that. And then even with Anthony Davis being on the team, LeBron doesn't even really lead in any of the categories outside of assists. Anthony Davis pretty much does. But let's look at tonight. And I just want to point out why what you just said is so important. LeBron James only had 16 points tonight. Anthony Davis had 34. When you look at that, you're going, well, obviously Anthony's points, most of those coming from the free throw line. Anthony's production would say that he's probably one of the most valuable people on the team. But look what happens in crunch time, and look at who you depend on to make beautiful defensive assignments. And LeBron turned his defense up in the last 3 or 4 minutes. And then you look at that last shot, what gave us the actual lead. Coming in, trying to draw the foul, missing the shot, having the concentration to get the rebound, one of his 2 offensive rebounds, and put it right back in the hoop. Got fouled. It was so obvious. As soon as he scored, he didn't even care that we were up by 2. He immediately turned around and went straight to Scott Foster.
Right. Scott Foster, you've been making calls all night that have been bogus on both sides. I mean, there was a charge early on that Scott Foster called that went against Paul George. But I felt like AD was actually, had his left foot sliding out and was out of position. And he made plenty of other calls. And there was a ton of whistles for this game. I feel like the referees are ramping up and getting, their load management in just like the players are as well, because they, they're not used to certain things and they hadn't been doing something as consistently as they have been, especially with this layoff. So, they're getting into the swing of things as well. A lot of whistles, a lot of, bogus calls, but, I didn't feel like it teetered in one way or the other for one team. It was pretty bogus on both sides. So
it was pretty close. We had 27 fouls, they had 30. So, but the idea of almost 60 personal fouls being called in a game like this, and there's no crowd, right? So you're talking about most of this is purely eyesight. You're not getting any kind of influence from the crowd. Almost 60 fouls is contributed not only to the refs getting there, whistle, game together, but also the teams just trying to figure out, how to play. Clippers obviously are still trying to identify themselves. They had 20 turnovers tonight. Unfortunately, the Lakers were not able to capitalize as well as they should have. The Lakers had 16 turnovers tonight, but the Clippers turned that into 20 plus points. So that's one thing we're going to have to look forward to going
Too
forward
many
is
turnovers.
too many. And while we do know the Lakers are probably one of the more well-oiled machines of all of those coming back to the restart, there's still a lot of kinks for all of these teams to figure out. And so even tonight, us winning the game, it was an ugly win. It was a very ugly win, but we got it together. We saw some great bright spots. But you better believe Vogel and Kidd and Lionel Hollins back at home, they all have probably a whole pamphlet full of stuff that they want to work on coming out going into the next game. So I'm excited about that. Here goes Anakat in my hand says AD had his best game of the season probably, and that's after 4 months off. Now I don't know if I would agree totally with that. Obviously he's done things like 40-20, putting up a 50 burger, things like that. But he was good tonight. He wasn't afraid of three. Shot 5 threes tonight, only made 2. But once again, like I said, he had 34
Big
points.
2 threes though.
Yeah, they were huge threes, and they were back to back. He was feeling the stroke. The third one looked like it was about to go in, but it obviously was a heat check. But 16 of those 34 points tonight came from the free throw line, which is
Clutch.
also telling. He's our best free throw shooter, and I texted you during the game about Caruso's free throw shooting, but I feel like the team in general, our free throw shooting just has never really come together this season.
Vogel knows. Vogel knows that has been an Achilles heel of ours. That in transition defense as well. But AD and Dion and Kuz in the third quarter, when they went on that run, let Vogel off the hook. And I'll tell you why. He didn't make the in-game adjustment like he normally does. For whatever reason, he left JaVale and left the starting lineup to begin the third for too long. And Doc Rivers made an adjustment and went smaller to start the third and spaced the Lakers out. So as a result, they clogged the lane. LeBron and AD weren't able to get to the block and inside the lane as much. And as a result as well, on the offensive end for the Clippers, they had better spacing, much better spacing, and were just hitting threes over and over, which is why Paul George was getting open and hit those 3 threes in a row. Once JaVale McGee came out around the 6 or 7 minute mark, and it was just AD, Kuz, Dion, Caruso, and I believe KCP out there. That's what sparked the run where AD hit those 2 huge threes. Kuz was doing his thing, and we went on that run and pretty much tied the game. And from there, had a shootout with the Clippers really down the stretch. A lot closer than I really would have thought that it should have been. The Lakers having that 10 to 12 point lead to start the second quarter. If they could have kept that, that's really what I would have liked to see. But a win's a win at the end of the day in the NBA. So I don't care how it comes. We split the season series with the Clippers and gain a psychological edge because the last time they saw us, they took that L. And the last 2 times they saw us, they took that L. So they could hold that L on the way out, take that L on the way out, as Mike Malone would say. And we on to the next one, Toronto on Saturday.
On Saturday. And I think it's very important what you just said. The first 2 games we lost, but the second 2 games we won. And as a great man told me, he says, most people remember you by your final chapter and not by your finest chapter. And so it's just good to know that we ended the series letting them know that we could beat them back to back. And I would love to see him in a 7-game series. That would be good, man. D Million says, bro, LeBron put on clamps. LeBron's defense tonight.
Clamps, bro.
It was very Cleveland reminiscent, man. I felt like he turned back the hand of time for a minute.
Man.
And he was doing his thing. There were even some times he got called for a foul where it just looked like his defense was just great and the refs just bailed out the other person. But LeBron's defense, man, can he keep this up all the way through to the finals? You think so, huh?
Absolutely. He's been off for 4 months. So, I mean, as pending health, yes, he's ready to go. He's energized. He was focused. He was locked in from the knee to start the game during the national anthem all the way down to the final interview with Jared Greenberg to end the show or to end the broadcast after picking up the win and winning the game and hitting the game-winning shot. I know he's not going to get credit for that, but that's a go-ahead shot in the final, 15 seconds to win the game. So, and came up with the game-winning shot and then the game-winning stop on both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to close out the game. So as far as I'm concerned, MVP at this point.
Bro, and you said something that was so important. You said he had 4 months off, and we forget this is Bron's second year. If we remember the first year, in these crunch time moments, how many times did we see LeBron? It's obviously with the groin injury and trying to get his body back in shape. How many times did we see him just settle for that long distance three in those clutch moments? And
Oh
sometimes
man.
he'd hit him, sometimes he wouldn't. But tonight, just to see his aggressiveness towards the hole in those final seconds, he knew what he wanted. He knew exactly what he wanted. And he was just playing bully ball. In fact, if you look at JaMychal Green, as soon as he got switched on to Bron, he was calling for help because he
Oh
knew
yeah.
Bron was coming to the inside, man. And that's what rest will do for a veteran like LeBron. It gives him the ability to have the energy and have the stamina. And listen, he's not even fully in basketball shape yet.
Not
So what
yet.
we saw tonight was great clamps, offensive prowess, obviously great decision making. Had some turnovers during the game, but we know that's going to come with LeBron. But in the clutch moments, he did his thing.
Late in the fourth quarter, there was a moment where AD got when he had that out of bounds play. We went to AD probably maybe 3 consecutive times and didn't get anything out of it. And one time he gets the ball from LeBron and steps out of bounds. And
Yeah,
I felt like after that play, LeBron said, "Okay, let me take it upon myself." He goes straight to the basket on JaMychal Green, gets the layup, calms everybody down, and we go ahead and get a stop from there. And he pretty much took the game over in the final minute to minute and a half. But Paul George did have a very huge shot to tie the game over Danny Green before LeBron's game-winning shot. So, I mean, that's what you're going to expect from these two teams, especially if they get in a 7-game series.
yeah, yeah. Paul George has been known to hit big shots, especially against LeBron teams. We go back to the Pacer days, of course. He's not against the moment, but just when you have the savvy veteran experience, obviously George hasn't won a title, hasn't been to the levels and depths of playoff that LeBron has. So he doesn't understand how to get through those moments as well as LeBron. But the Clippers are going to be a problem. 24K Petty says, "I'm here, cousin. This is my play, cousin. Y'all know the Lakers are so beautiful and stressful." That's the perfect way I would describe them. And tonight was beautiful and stressful. Our homeboy Al Sanchez, good to see you. He says, "Hello, everyone." Sauce says, "Lake Show, baby." Yeah, and then Blake St. Clair, good to see you, my friend. He's speaking towards
Out
our
here.
Kuzma conversation. And I want you to respond to this. But Blake says, when but then it will go all the way. It will all go away. He's talking about Kuzma if Kuzma does nothing in the next game. So essentially, all the momentum that Kuzma did tonight, the next game he tends to have and he's right. Blake is right. He tends to have a tendency of having this up and down motion with great games. Last year, they said he had, I think it was 26 20-point games or something like that, 20-point plus games. So he had a lot more efficiency last year. But this year, it just feels like he'll have a great game, and then the next game he'll give you 9 points and 7
Yeah.
rebounds. So
Yeah,
uh,
and that all just depends on his minutes, though. That all just
yeah,
as long as he gets the consistent minutes that he got tonight, which were very consistent. A lot of time with AD. It looks like he got about 32 minutes tonight. He played 32
mhm.
out of 48 minutes. That's the kind of time that Kuz is going to need to have and be the first person off the bench in order for him to get the production that you would really want to see out of him. So again, against Pascal Siakam, we'll see how he fares, but
Mm.
it should be a pretty good game on Saturday, and I'd expect at least another 12 to 16 points from Kuz.
Yeah, and I think just kind of going back to the Kuz conversation, we've seen two different dynamics out of him, really, in these 2 seasons with LeBron. We've seen him attempt to be a scorer. We've seen games where Bron and AD sat out, and they let Kuzma have the green light. And we've seen him, light it up. And then we've seen moments where Bron and AD are playing, and you see Kuzma much more of a rebounder, throwing in some points here and there, trying to work on his defense. Tonight felt like, for the first time, I kind of saw Kuzma putting the two sides of him together, where he is able to
Yes.
contribute with rebounds and defense and give us the scoring ability. And I think if he can do that just into the playoffs, like you said, and then you throw in a Dion Waiters, and maybe you have, forgive me, maybe you have a KCP get hot at a certain point. That's what makes the Lakers so unpredictable. But it all hinges really off of Kuz. If Kuz can become consistent at that, I just don't see any team beating the Lakers.
Absolutely. That third guy and that third scorer that you have to be aware of it could really be anybody. It's going to be Kuz most times, but it could be KCP. It could be Danny Green, who had 27 points in the first Clipper game when we first faced them. It could be Dion Waiters, who had 11 points in only 21 minutes. And it could be J.R. Swish, who only played 8 minutes tonight and wasn't in the flow of things, but he's hit some big shots, and he's a champion at the end of the day and has that championship experience and that pedigree. So we can go 8, 9, 10 deep, just like the Clippers, and it'll be just a fun series as long as we were able to make it that far. Both teams are able to make it that far. And one thing I do want to point out, this is a big win for the Lakers and also a big loss for the Clippers as well. Why? Because they could slide down to maybe the 3 seed, right? They could slide down possibly. And if they slide down to the 3 seed and maybe Houston stays at 6 and they have to face Houston in the first round, they don't want those problems. Not if they could actually help it. So this is, not a good step in the right direction for them. But let's see if they can, maybe win 6 of the last 8 to keep their seeding, because Utah won tonight. That's another half game, or actually full game, that Utah jumped in the standings closer to the Clippers because they won tonight and beat the Pelicans, and the Clippers lost tonight to the Lakers. So game for game, as much as been made about the playoffs and these scrimmage games and the possible, ramp up to the playoffs with these 8 regular season games and this finish, these games are going to count, and they count for the seeding, and it matters. And basically, based on the minutes that you saw, AD played 35, LeBron played 34, Kuzma played 32. They'll obviously ramp those minutes up a little bit more in the playoffs, but those are regular season minutes that have been consistent for all those players. So they treat it just like a regular season game, and as long as they continue to do that for the rest of these games, or maybe early on, so that way they could rest in the final 3 games like we were talking about last show, we'll see what happens. But there was a point where I thought LeBron wasn't going to have to come back out of the game. I spoke a little bit too soon. I tweeted that out because there was a point maybe with 4 minutes left that LeBron may not have had to come back in because the Lakers were rolling by a little bit. But once Paul George hit those threes, time to bring LeBron back in to finish the game, and got the game-winning shot. Can't be happy.
And that's the goal for the whole season, right? We've been talking about this all season. Can we get to a place where LeBron doesn't have to come in and save the day? Can we get to those last 3 or 4 minutes and the game be essentially not just settled, but the momentum doesn't wane? And the Lakers got a little bit better with that. But, when you're talking about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, that you're talking about a duo that, to me, there really is nobody else in the league that even compares to AD and LeBron except for them. I can't really think of another duo that can be as dangerous in clutch time like those two. Both have hit big shots. One is a champion, the whole 9. But it was good to see that. But Al Sanchez brought this up tonight. He goes, I thought the Lakers played terrible considering Harold, obviously Montrezl Harrell, and Lou Williams were out. How much do you think the game would have changed with those two in?
In the second quarter, that lead that we had would have been non-existent if Lou and Trez were on the floor. Realistically, that 10 to 12 point lead when we're up maybe 33 to 23 or early in the second quarter, I think that lead would have been non-existent. It would have been a close game throughout the second, and then going into the third and even to close out the fourth, having those guys on the floor would have made a very big difference. Also, not having Avery Bradley out, first seeding game. You could tell we definitely missed him, especially when Patrick Beverley was out on the floor, and also when Paul George was getting loose earlier in the first half. To have Avery Bradley out there to just another wing defender that can pick up all 94 feet right off the bat, you could tell that. I mean, we already knew that was going to hurt us, but you got to see with your own 2 eyes early on in the first half where we missed Avery Bradley. But I was very, very happy with AD's performance. Caruso defensively, maybe his shooting was a little off, but defensively, there's a reason why he was a +9 overall in the 28 minutes that he had. So as long as they can keep up this trend and continue to fight hard and play hard, Doc Rivers said that we were playing harder than they were, which is why we were up. As long as we can continue to play hard, we'll be in great shape. So,
and speaking to the Caruso, man, I was texting, Chaz and I were going back and forth just talking about different points about tonight. And I literally had texted him and was like, who would you rather have in crunch time, Waiters or Caruso? And I didn't
even respond. And I didn't even respond just yet.
I literally, he didn't say a word. He didn't say a word. And as I hit send, Caruso taps the ball out of bounds, catches it midair, and puts it back, and gives it back to a player. Basically
And
gets
throws it back to Kuz.
and goes back to
Yep.
Cruz, gives a deflection and a steal. And I was like, I just texted him immediately. He didn't even. I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
Caruso answered that for me.
And what did I tell you when the Clippers, we were texting back and forth in the third quarter when they went on that run and we were down 11
Yep.
midway through the third quarter? I said, that's just because Vogel didn't make the necessary adjustment and take McGee out. So instead of being down 1 to end the third quarter, if he would have taken McGee out maybe 3 or 4 minutes a little earlier and went small to Kuz to space out the floor defensively and offensively, so that way AD and LeBron had a little bit more lane to the basket, then maybe instead of being down 1 to close the third quarter, we're maybe up 5. So
there you go.
Just those small differences and those adjustments. Obviously, he's a great coach and he's going to be able and has a great staff. And if I know this, obviously he's going to go back to the film and look at this as well. And he'll make the necessary adjustments moving forward. But I told you we were going to come back. And by the end of the quarter, we were within 1 point and closed it out and won by that LeBron put back bucket. So
yeah, and I literally we were down by 11 when I texted you. And then literally within like 15 minutes, we were up by 11. And I just remember texting you back. It was like, you called it. You literally called it. I was in the panic mode. Like most of us in this chat. Well, when we fell behind, I was like, I said, what happened? What is going on? And you were just, calm, cool, collected. If there's anybody who personifies a true Laker fan, it's Chaez, because this dude is like, he is unwavering.
Oh, no. And we have Anthony, and I knew Anthony Davis was going to turn it on, and he had 34 tonight. He did his thing. He had 8 rebounds, had 4 assists, and no blocks tonight, but altered a lot of shots and was pretty much the anchor on the offensive end. LeBron played terrible by his standards, but still comes up huge in the big spots to end the game with like I said, the sequence at the end on both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And he got it going early and was getting in his rhythm. Didn't hit a lot of his jump shots, but changed up his shoes, made it a little bit more shots in the second half, and had the biggest plays to close the game. So I'm looking forward to see how much these guys play over the course of the next seeding games to see exactly what kind of rest period that they're going to have going into maybe the first round, because they are going to ramp up to maybe instead of 35, maybe 38, 40 minutes perhaps. But we'll see exactly what kind of shape these guys are in, and they're just getting started, picking up right where they left off before the shutdown happened.
Yeah. We have a comment in here that's from our own Jonathan Watson, who's tweeting from the Showtime Forum account. Jonathan, good to see you tonight. He said, Lakers and Celtics are officially tied for the most 50-win seasons in NBA history. Tonight was our 50th win, for those who didn't know, and that brings our total to 33. So another record in the books for the Lakers tonight with
always
33. Yeah, 50 wins. And I believe next year we're going to have another 50-win season as well.
Oh, yeah.
Al Sanchez says KCP was way off tonight. He had a good plus minus, the only positive plus minus in the starting lineup, but he was 2 of 8, and he some of his points came from the free throw line, 2 of his points, and then he hit a couple.
Played 29 minutes too.
Yeah. But once again, you're looking to see how well is he able to do the intangibles. Tonight he wasn't the normal KCP. There were some shots that we were hoping he would hit. He was 0 of 3 from 3-point land. These are normally places that he would be great, but we also want to just point out that the offense is a little bit different, introducing a Dion Waiters who gets his own shot. KCP is in the starting lineup where he normally would shine, but when you're watching, Anthony Davis and LeBron James kind of struggle, it does bring a lot of more pressure on those players. So when LeBron is not hitting, teams tend to do a lot more double teaming. Even Kuz tonight got double teamed in some really weird spaces where normally LeBron would have drew that double team and left Kuz open. So I don't contribute a lot of KCP struggle tonight to anything outside of not necessarily rust, but just the struggle. It flourishes the most, in my opinion, when LeBron and AD are doing their thing. Yeah. And so when they're not, they're coming at KCP. They're coming at Kuz. Danny Green tonight was 2 of 6. He had a couple of great threes. He only had 6 points. Yeah. And this is what we're looking from Danny Green. I think people are forgetting that.